in less than 2 months, I am going to be hiking over 30 miles through Iceland. And doing so is going to help me get a copy of my number one grail of all time, Fantastic Four number 5, the first appearance of Doctor Doom. And I'm sure you're wondering, how in the world is hiking through Iceland going to help him get his comic grail? Well, to answer that question, I first have to give you a little bit of background to this hike. So, my older 2 boys and I are a part of a scouting troop that made a decision about 6 months ago to do a high adventure trip backpacking the Lugavegar Trail, which is about 32 miles over 4 days. And so, of course, I became super excited about having that opportunity to grow, but I also started thinking back to last summer when I went on my first backpacking trip ever, when this troop hiked about 12 miles in the mountains of West Virginia. And the first half of that trip was pretty good because we were descending down a mountain. But the second half was pretty barbaric as I really struggled to get back to the top, and was super excited when I finally saw my car for the first time. Well, when I started thinking about that trip, I realized, man, I don't want to have that same experience in Iceland. When I'm in Iceland on this trail, I want to be having the time of my life. I've been reading what we're going to see on the trail in this guidebook, and it's just going to be super exciting. And so I want to be, experiencing the steam vents and all this, and instead of just huffing and puffing. And so I realized 6 months ago, well, if I want to enjoy this hike that's coming up beginning July 8th, I need to start making plans now. And as I've been thinking about that, I always like to connect all the things in my life to comics because I love this hobby so much, of course. I started thinking, well, if one day I want to get this Fantastic Four number 5, I've got to start making plans now. I'm not just going to wake up one day with a few extra $1,000 just to throw at this comic book. Maybe some of you have that type of money. Me, I don't. The disposable income is pretty low around here. And so I've really got to start planning if I want to ever get a copy of this grail. And so both with the Iceland trip and with getting a Fantastic Four number 5, I've realized a lot of the skill set to obtain those things or to prepare for those things are the same. And first of all, it obviously just takes a sense of a long-term plan. And if you're looking to get a comic grail, hopefully some of my thoughts will give you some ideas of how to prepare to get your grail as well. So first of all, preparing for this Iceland trip has required me to really push myself. I realized, again, if I want to have a fun time in July, then I need to start getting in shape back in January. And so I started running on a treadmill about once a week, and then started going on increasingly longer hikes about once a week. And I've been doing that today. I just came from a big hike that I did with my boys. We hiked 7 miles at a nearby mountain. And, it was brutal. In fact, part of the reason I'm talking about this is I had some other ideas, but I was just too worn out to do the research tonight. So I just said, well, I've been thinking about the trail and comics and all this. I'll just tie them together. But it's hard, and I'm having to push myself. And as I get closer to July, the training is going to continue to ramp up quite a bit. And I've also had to push myself to take on some side hustles along with the rest of the troop to help us afford it. Because obviously it's not going to be cheap to take me and my boys over there. In fact, if I took the money that we're going to spend on this trip, I probably could go ahead and buy my Fantastic Four grail, but I guess having the time of my life with my boys is worth sacrificing that FF5 for now, at least. But we've taken on some side hustles. We've done things like a mulch sale, where, of course, we sold mulch and then hand-delivered it to people's homes, and other things we've been doing to try to earn the money. But Obviously that's taken time. A lot of that has involved physical labor. And so again, pushing myself to do that. And when I think of what it means to go to comics, then I think if you want to be able to afford a grail, and again, yeah, you don't have a lot of disposable income. I mean, obviously, some number of people can just buy what they want. But if you're like me, where you might have 10 or 20 bucks to kind of throw around whenever you want. But when you're talking about these big purchases, you just don't have that money lying around. Well, it probably is going to require taking on some side hustles in order to help you earn the money to pay for whatever book it is that you're looking for. And so I made a video about that a few months ago. Something I did around the beginning of last year is starting to donate plasma and getting paid for that. And I've earned over $1,000 already doing that. And I'm thinking about even increasing how often I give. You can give twice a week. Right now I only give once a week. And if I do, by this time next year, I'll be well on my way to having that FF5. So I always like to encourage people to think about, man, do I have a couple of extra hours a week that I can use to make some extra money in some way? Again, if I want to buy this grail, and obviously we don't all go after grails, and that's fine. If you like just collecting dollar bin books or going after cheaper runs, hopefully you still enjoy this video, but there's no right way to collect, as at least most of us know. I don't think everybody knows that, judging by some of my comments, but most of us know, whatever makes you happy. So if getting a big grail would make you happy, as it would make me happy, thinking about taking on a side hustle can help you get there. And something else that I've had to do to prepare for my Iceland trip is to learn how to exercise restraint. And in its context, especially restraint when it comes to food. Because since COVID, I've put on 20 pounds and it wasn't good weight from getting jacked or something like that. Came from a few things. First of all, like a lot of people became more sedentary during COVID. My gym shut down, and so I tried to still exercise some, but just not pre-COVID levels. And also, I mentioned I'm taking my two kids hiking through Iceland, my two sons. But if you've watched my channel, I actually have 7 children. And, when you have 7 children, the little kids often don't finish their meals. And I'm someone who hates to waste food. And so when they leave something on their plate, well, I usually just eat it. Well, when you're multiplying that by like 3 extra kids, then all of a sudden you've basically had 2 meals at each mealtime. And so I've had to say, all right, I've just got to be willing to throw their food away, and or just start out with less food on my own plate, knowing, oh yeah, little Sophia's food's going to come my way. And so I need to put a plan for that. And the other reason why I've put on some weight is my oldest daughter has fallen in love with baking, which on the one hand is quite a great perk of having some kids around the house. But on the flip side, when it comes to my weight, there's always just cookies or cakes around the house, and certainly I do think it's important as a father that I still eat some of her dessert, to show, oh, I really appreciate that you went through this. So I haven't, and I'm not going to just cut it all out. Back in my 20s, when I was a single guy, there was a time where I just cut out desserts totally. And I'm trying to cut out desserts totally except for what my daughter makes now. But I can decide to, I'll have one of these cookies you made instead of 4 or 5 or whatever it might be. But showing some restraint. Now, before we get to my next point, if you haven't subscribed to this channel, of course, I'd appreciate it if you consider doing so now. And this has paid off. I've lost about 5 pounds over the past couple of months, and I'm hoping to lose another 5 by the time the trip rolls around. It obviously still doesn't get me to my pre-COVID weight, but combined with the cardio that I'm building up through these long hikes, I think I will be able to do the Iceland trip pretty well. But I've thought about, again, how does that apply to comics? Well, if you're looking to get a grail It's also, again, for the vast majority of us who don't have tons of disposable income, going to require a restraint. This is something that I've been doing, preparing to get this FF5. I've been buying less comics, even though I love comics. I just want all the comics, right? I've made a decision for actually a couple reasons, not simply this reason, but this is one of them. This year I've bought way less comics than I've done over the past couple of years. I've worked hard, if you watch the channel, to get the hobby to fund itself. And so what I've usually done is bought a lot of books, sold enough to basically break even. And then use that money to then buy more books and try to stay at this zero state as much as I can. Well, I'm now selling more than I'm buying because obviously it's not going to get me anywhere just to keep breaking even, and all of a sudden I'm going to have enough money to buy an FF5, and so I'm restraining myself from buying certain books. And so that's something, if you're looking for a grail, you might consider thinking, okay, well, I've got a pull list of new comics of whatever, we'll just say 20. Well, do I really need all 20 of these? Maybe there's 2 I don't even enjoy, but I just get these titles because I always have. Can you cut down to 18? Well, all of a sudden that's $10 a month. That's $120 a year. Are there other things that you can cut out? Maybe you go out to eat 3 times a week. Can you change that to 2 times a week? Save another $10 a week. And all of a sudden, these little small things add up, and you have a lot of extra money and enough to put into a grail. And I think that's actually what makes restraint often hard when it comes to money. It's not like most of us are all of a sudden just going out and blowing $10,000, right? But we can blow $10 because it doesn't seem like such a big deal. Or when it comes to my 20 pounds, it's not like any given cookie has got me here. And so it's easy when the cookie's in front of me to say, oh, it's just one cookie, who cares? But when I do that over and over and over, it begins to add up. In the same way, if I spend $10 here, $10 there, over and over and over, it begins to add up. And all of a sudden, I'm left with an extra 20 pounds, or I'm left with a zero balance in my checking account, or whatever it might be. But the reverse, of course, then is also true. If I start cutting out a cookie a week, or a soda a week, or whatever it might be, or if I start cutting out a couple of comics a month, then all of a sudden these small things begin to build into something that's big, or in the case of my weight, something that's less big perhaps. But that balance of pushing myself and exercising restraint in other areas, I think it's what's certainly going to help me on this awesome Iceland trip, but that's also going to help me get FF5. And I really think one of the great things about finding something hard to do like this hiking trip, the discipline you gain helps you to then have discipline to put towards other areas. It's one of the reasons why I think we all have different interests, but some way to push yourself, especially even physically, go for a hard hike, things like that. You start building not just a physical toughness, but also this mental toughness where you start doing better in other areas of life. And I've certainly seen that in my life. In the times where I've been the most disciplined physically are the times that I've been most disciplined mentally, and whether it's in financial decisions or just how I'm spending my time. I stopped just spending too many hours on YouTube. Now, if you're watching my videos, you're not wasting any time on YouTube, of course, but I can be tempted, like all of us, just to binge on Netflix or whatever. And certainly some of that's fun, just like some cookies are fun and fine, but obviously it can get too much. Netflix can get too much for me, and I can just binge watch and realize, I just blew my whole day watching whatever. Well, when I've built up mental toughness through some physical pushing, that's helped me in those ways. And now maybe you don't see any of these connections at all, and that's fine. I'm not trying to be preachy here. I'm just sharing things that have helped me. Hopefully will help you reach your goals, whether, again, it's buying a comic grail or, I like to share things that can benefit us more than comics. Like, I love comics, it's the purpose of this channel, but what I really love is to talk about things that help us in all areas of our life. And so, pushing yourself, restraint, that's going to help you in so many ways. But you tell me what you think. Do my ideas make sense, or am I way out there? If you agree with my ideas, is there a way that you've exercised restraint or pushed yourself that has really been beneficial? Or, when it comes to physicality, I'm always interested in the comments. Tell me, what type of exercise do you like to do? Do you like to go on long hikes? Do you like to lift weights? Whether you actually are doing it now, or you've been like me over the past 4 years where I've mostly just dropped those things until realizing I need to get my butt off the couch, or my boys are going to be ashamed of their father down at the bottom of the mountain while them and the rest of the dads are at the top. So maybe I'm doing, but in an ideal world, what type of exercise do you like to do? Now, if you haven't subscribed to this channel, again, of course, I'd appreciate it if you consider doing so. Like, comment, thank you.